Hi there, welcome to the Paradox of Change podcast and YouTube channel, your spot for everything mental health and personal growth. And we've got just the team for it. We have a relationship and sex therapist with all the juicy insights as you would expect, a personal life coach to help us level up, and me, a therapist focused on one-to-one support. With over 30 years of combined know-how, we're all about mixing things up a little bit, from chatting with entrepreneurs about their mental health to digging a little deeper with practitioners about how they do their thing, plus interviewing ex-clients with real-world stories. Our first guest today is Leilah Mirza, a holistic therapist working out the south of England. Leilah's had a myriad of radio and TV appearances, even hosting a number of shows helping people untangle their world. I think today's recording is more of a reason for us to connect more than anything else. We talk a little bit about the POC and its origins, and more importantly, some insight into how Leilah works. I hope you enjoy. We can sound like we're a proper studio then. What do you think of it?
I think it's amazing.
So this...
I love it.
Yeah.
It's so technical. But I even love this, how you've done this, everything.
Yes.
Your branding. I love how you found your branding.
Well...
And it speaks. It's powerful.
I mean, that's an interesting point. So the POC, as we're calling it, Paradox of Change, as a classically trained client-centered therapist, and I've got his book up there, Carl Rogers, if you've heard of him, so he pioneered client-centered therapy, and it was one of his books. He said that he'd noticed a thread that had run through his therapeutic work, which was when a client accepts themselves as they are, the curious paradoxes that they change. It resonated because I made it a reference to it in one of my pieces of coursework, and I think 4 years into it, the whole paradox of changing kept on coming up for me. So it was speaking to me in some way, shape or form. Yeah. And then working with clients from sort of 2012 onwards, there's been a genuine recognition that whether we exhaust the dialogue or the identity that we might have, there is a point where a client will just switch and start making positive changes, new aspirations, doing things that scares them, whatever it might be. So that's kind of the reason for it. Yeah. And then I was thinking, as far as branding is concerned, I think I just like the colours, the kind of royal blue. Yeah.
I mean, I even like this universe part of it as well.
I can't remember where I got that original image. I did the graphic was interesting because Chat GPT, where you can just talk to AI. I asked Chat GPT and another app what images were conjured up with the word paradox, and nothing came up that was any use at all. And then whilst doing a bit of a Google search, I can't remember the artist, but it's the infinite stairs, those pictures that can be upside down, and that's what came up with the paradox. And I was thinking about that kind of evolution of going around and around, sort of accepting ourselves as we are.
Oh wow!
I worked
that's quite deep.
Thanks.
I love it.
So that's where it came from.
Yeah, I love it. Very good.
There might be some tweaks to it, but certainly for the meantime and where we are at the moment, as I say, there's 3 of us in this, so...
Wow.
We like it.
You should just trust this process. This is just a start.
Yeah. Well, you'll have to be a permanent guest a few times a year. So if we think about your background and who you are, let's say pretend you've never met me and we've got our audience listening. Tell me a little bit about sort of who you are and how you became, explain to me your therapy, because you're an integrative therapist or you're a holistic therapist. Is that kind of your title?
Yeah. And the reason why I call myself a holistic therapist, it's because I want to remove myself away from just being perhaps a child therapist. As I may have said to you before, that therapy is such a big word. And holistic to me means working on mind, body and soul. I want to focus on the whole person, their whole character, to what's made them the way they are, from understanding their childhood, understanding their character, their human design, basically, to what have led them to the path.
How long have you been doing this now?
So I started in 2014.
Same as me. Well, yeah,
Oh, really?
I qualified 2014
Yeah.
and started the journey 2010.
Yeah. I just had this deep desire. I always loved people from a child. You know, I was what they call like an empath, you know.
Yeah.
I was quite empathic. When people would speak, I'd always look at them on a deeper level, trying to understand them, you know. So I loved working with people. And it was until 2014 something clicked and said, you know, you need to help people. You need to get to work with people, to understand people on a deep layer.
Well, what did you notice then in you that you thought that there is more to this than just like, yeah, so you've got a natural gift,
Yeah.
you connect with people, but
Yeah.
what was like that, what instigated that I can do more?
You know, because I think as a child,
Yeah.
I was searching for someone. And
Okay.
I basically became the person that I was looking for.
You became the go-to person.
Yeah, for me. And I thought if we can open that light bulb in anyone else, I'd be the one who'd happily do this for people. You know, so I noticed my power more in helping people. Not my power, because I don't want to own it, because I feel like we are catalysts. We open the path for people and we show people their potential. So I don't want to say like, hey, it's because of me, I'm the guru, I changed your life, because I don't believe in that. I feel like we are catalysts in people's life, and we meet them at certain places where they need us, you know.
So who would you say your kind of your demographic of the clients that you find? How do they manifest themselves? Where do you find the people you want to help?
When I started doing therapy, I realized that therapy is a very broad term.
Well, we were just talking about this, weren't we?
Exactly. I mean, you could be a child therapist, a play therapist, a sex therapist, or whatever therapist. So I needed to understand who do I really truly resonate with and why. And that became my messaging.
Yeah.
So the people that I truly resonate with is people who's gone through trauma.
Yeah.
Or people who perceive themselves as a trauma, because our sense of perception are all different. You know, that 69 thing, the way you see 69 may be 96,
Yeah.
I may see it as 69. So that's how I started defining my niche with working with people. It's people who's gone through trauma, and mostly people who's gone through abandonment trauma.
You must have. So through that journey, then you've become. You've got a qualification in hypnotherapy,
Yeah.
is that right?
Yeah.
And you got a therapist as well, and there was something else that was that was the one. Tell me a little bit about this inner child work, because I'll be absolutely frank with you, I don't know much about it, and this is my opportunity to learn. So what is inner child work?
Inner child work is when we go back and meet ourselves at that age that we were fragmented at. So we all have an inner child. So we have the chronological inner child, and we're the biological child. So we have to make sure that they are amalgamated, because 90% of our subconscious is programmed based on our childhood experiences.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically what I'm trying to say is our responses, the way we carry on in the world, is based on our stories that we have formed.
Yes.
So if we have gone through, for example, like a trauma as a child, let's say about perhaps, let's use this one, finance.
Yeah.
Maybe we grew up in a childhood where money was a struggle, and there was a lot of scarcity, and there was a lot of fear around money. And as we become older, we have this fear around money, or we kind of manifest this in our lives, that we tend to have this distorted relationship with money. And this is because we have some beliefs that's been formed in our childhood.
Yeah.
So our stories that we form or our unhealed parts of us that we're formed are based on our childhood. And that's the inner child work that we do.
So that was a good example, sort of the financial side. It actually resonated with me. I think when I was a young man, there was, as far as my family was concerned, they were fairly well off.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't earn the respect of finances. It's only until I was out in the big wide world later on that I had to have a better quality relationship with it. So that kind of makes sense. But you're talking about any kind of distorted perception of what we think is...
Yeah.
It's not for us to say whether it's somebody's reality or not, but it's certainly something that we can see if it's affecting somebody in a negative way.
Yeah.
You can kind of look at that and then kind of calculate where there could be a better relationship with, you said, finances or themselves or family or health or
even love, you know, even love. And I think this is one of the big things that I found with working with people, that your love story can sometimes be based on your childhood's perception of love story.
Yeah.
Because as children, we actually born like a blank canvas. And us as parents, we start installing beliefs on our children. Like, oh, don't go there because if you walk that side, you're going to get hurt. Or the snake will bite you, because the child doesn't know that the snake is going to bite, you know. But we install these beliefs. So our love story can also be formed on what we perceived as what our parents shown each other perhaps. So, for example, what my mother showed my father, what my father showed my mother could have become my love story. So just for like an example, because I know I use this in lots of interviews, right? So my father and my mother, I was born in Cape Town, South Africa.
Yeah.
And my father is mixed race. So we're classed as like coloured. So it's okay for us to use this term in South Africa.
Yeah.
It's not actually offensive. So they're very strict, you know, and they can be quite possessive. So my father was quite strict. He was quite possessive. On some level, it could be as quite seen as controlling. So I would then form relationships with males who would be strict and possessive and controlling.
Well, that's normal.
Because to me, that was normal. And that was what love looked like. Even so, that was not true. But that's what my subconscious mind as saw what love looked like. So I based my love story on that. So even though I didn't want to recreate those relationships, I didn't want to be in a relationship with a man who is perhaps violent or aggressive or perhaps controlling and abusive or, you know, unhealthy in some toxic ways. I was manifesting that because it was safe. So the brain sees what's safe, even though it's not healthy, but it's what's known.
And it's interesting you're saying about manifesting. We do, whether we realise it or not, if we think negative, we breed, we evolve into a negative mindset and we attract it.
Yeah.
And it's so true in the opposite term. You do, if you think positive, which is a hard thing to do. It's a gradual shift into that way of being. Positive things do happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Because in our life, 80% of our life is based on our mindset, and then the rest is 30% is based on action. So it all really starts in here. So a healthy mind's a healthy life.
Definitely. I was just thinking about sort of some of the client work that I might have when we talk about some of the self concepts that someone might have from a very early age, and then you hear some of their history, whether it might be a critical parent, can't do this, can't do that, can't do this, can't do that, having that drummed in every day, and then I'm sat with this lovely human being, and they are repeating word for word, oh well, I can't do this, I can't do that, and it is just evolved into the next demographic of that family unit. It's hard to see, but also I feel a lot of value when that person can start to client-centered therapy. One of the core components is being congruent. So being okay with not being okay, being compassionate, being comfortable, and holding yourself accountable more than anything else. And I like the fact that when I can replicate a nice safe environment positive way of being, open and not scared of change, all those kind of things. So you evolve into this nice, comfortable conversation. They start to recognise how that fits in with their own self-image.
Yes.
And they start to go, actually, I'm not seeing this right, am I? Or I'm not. My history is coming into play. So I'm not a bad person. I'm not an ugly person. I'm not a fat person. I'm not this. It's just that's what I've been told.
Yes.
And you must. I guess that's in part some of the child. I'm trying to connect the dots here with your inner child work.
Yeah, because that's ultimately what people are seeking.
Yeah.
People are seeking connection. Humans are born to connect.
But it's hard to change, isn't it?
Exactly.
And we were only talking about this when we were having a cup of tea just before we started. If you have two kind of individuals, two kind of people, the ones that are holding themselves rigid, their identity, terrified of change. So they might be aggressive, they might be abrupt, they might have absolutely zero self-esteem, versus others that might be a little bit more empathic, as you were saying, but they at some point they hold themselves accountable to a shift or a change, and then they go, I'm open to that change, I'll come to therapy. So
I think it's a journey. The world is basically, we're on a journey. And I think sometimes not everybody is ready to go in there. And that could be because it could be too painful, for some people to go into those to become internal. To become internal, it's basically taking accountability. It's going and...
That's a big thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big thing. And not everybody is truly ready to take accountability for things. And I've seen this. And even in therapy, there are some people who go, I want to heal.
Great.
Yeah. And there are some people who really want to heal.
Yeah.
Some people are really looking to do the deep work. And I mean, this is called secondary gains. I don't know if you've ever heard of this word before.
No, tell me more about that.
Secondary gains, trauma, it's basically when we want to heal, but we hold on to our trauma as well, because we're gaining something from having that trauma.
Ah, okay. I understand that. It's a bit like trauma bonds, when you have two individuals that become best of friends or lovers or whatever, because they've both been through the same
trauma.
Hurt. Yeah.
It's like going to a park and saying like, hey, my husband went and neglected me last week and he's done this. And then another lady goes, yeah, my husband too. Oh, let's have coffee.
Let's both revel around in this trauma together.
Exactly.
It makes me feel good. Yeah, but it's not positive.
Exactly. It's not aligned. It's not healthy. But you get this with people as well. People who perhaps use their illnesses because it gives them the attention of needing to be loved, needing to be validated. And this is that victim archetype that we have. So people who use the pity story. But there is a desire in some people who really do want to heal.
Maybe this is in part the reason why there's a group of us that have started this podcast, because we want to have, I said to you before, I don't want to sensationalize people, don't want to put people under the microscope, don't want to embarrass these lovely human beings that are going to spend some time with us. But I think when we think about those traumas and we think about those identities, it is nice that we can bring about those conversations. We can say, well, there's lots of people like this. You don't hold on to the identity. Taking that accountability to then grow is a big step. So I'm hoping that sort of doing these kind of podcasts and having these kind of interviews, it gives, because you're a different modality to me. You're like that holistic therapy. I've got a very sort of niche way of working, but it is good that we have this opportunity to connect with people and give them a bit of insight that they might be trauma bonded to their partner. They might be trauma bonded to a best friend or even a group of individuals. But you can hear them reveling in the identity, in the trauma, in the negative mindset. Yeah. Because somehow it validates them.
Yeah. Well, like attracts like, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Sometimes. And that saying that you are the 5 people you hang around with. I think Tony Robbins may have said that. There are loads of people who may have said this, that you are the first 5 people that you hang around with. So if there's
I've heard that, yeah.
Yeah, so like I've seen women who's gone through some form of narcissistic abuse or some form of abuse by their partners, and they form like almost not like a groupie, but they form like this friendship with other women who are in a similar, like a support group. But it doesn't actually help them to heal. It actually keeps them stuck on some way because they are not shifting from that. They are staying in that emotion, in that energy, so there's no real awareness to pull them out or help.
No. That's common. It's commonplace, and it's such a huge ask to shift out of that mindset. It's a huge ask if you're potentially under the microscope when, the mirror's been held up, and then you realise that you're doing something that actually could be quite seen as quite embarrassing or shameful. I don't know about the work that you do, and you mentioned it sort of, I want to heal, and I was going, to me that was like I kind of got a sense of what you were saying you want to heal, and then actually going, I need to change because I'm going for these type of relationships. I'm recognising the pattern. When you're at that point, then you're open to change, and you must see that as well.
Yeah. I actually think that is a really brave thing for someone to do.
Yeah.
And I actually think that's really beautiful as well. If someone comes to me and says to me, look, I need to heal because I'm attracting these relationships.
It's that accountability, the ownership.
Yeah, that for me, I mean, I get goosebumps because, I keep moving your mic.
That's all right.
I get goosebumps because I'm someone who's quite positive, and I love empowering people in therapy as well, giving people back their power. I love that. It's passionate, it's sexy, it's everything to me. It's like the new version of, it's just so nice. You have the power. You should walk this earth like you were made to, and that's what I love to do. So when someone comes to me and say, look, I really just want to form a functional, healthy relationship. I want to stop attracting this. I want to be free. That shows me that they are ready to take accountability. And I can resonate with that. I can say, look, at some points in my life, I looked at my life and go, hold on, this needs to change. And the only person who's going to change it is me.
Yeah.
It's not the type of man. I'm not going to wait for Prince Charming to come. I'm going to find myself so I'm available for Prince Charming to come.
Attract Prince Charming.
I'm going to attract Prince Charming because I'm going to do the work and make myself ready.
How do you think this is kind of playing into our social structure at the moment? Because I don't know if this is the same concept as you, but this is social media and Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, which gives me shivers, but I understand it's got a place. But I'm getting a sense of our society is degrading at a fairly alarming rate. That whole external validation for social media, and I don't know if we're being affected a little bit by the US, but it does seem that no one is holding themselves accountable for their behaviour, for the way they think, how they treat people. People are being used more. Are you seeing the same sort of trend? Do you get the same sort of feelings?
Yeah, I do. I also feel like it's not really authentic. I think it depends on obviously what you filtered to be watching. Like sometimes
we're being fed artificial intelligence, aren't we? So the algorithms.
Exactly. But for example, I have children. So if my daughter is watching girls who are doing stuff to them and constantly that's what she's going to be getting, and that's going to feed into her, and she's going to look at herself as a product of the society where she's at. She's going to try to blend. So it's very important for me, and I feel it's very imperative for us as parents to lead our children into understanding self-love, self-worth, to understanding what a healthy human looks like.
I love that, and I'll tell you the reason why. We were talking 10, 15 minutes ago about sort of the childhood and the inner child work, and I was just sort of connecting the dots. We have, and I think this is probably, I'll come back to this, we have an obligation to look after ourselves, to be the roadmap for our children. So if we tell our kids what to do, it has no impact to showing our kids in comparison what to do. It's completely different. So I think I would say there are a lot of parents that might be quite critical of their children to try and show them, or, hand them an iPad or a phone, and then we're at risk of having our kids being brought up by the internet, which quite frankly terrifies me.
Yeah. Well, amazing. I want to clap my hands to what you just said. We should take the responsibility, and we should take the lead on how we're raising our children, because we want to raise children as empowered, and especially in this world right now, where we are right now, like everything's so advanced. I'm sure now you have choices that you can make without your parents at a very early age, that you don't really...
That's what they're exposed to.
Exactly.
It's so easy to press a button and then you go down a rabbit hole.
And they are not even developed.
No.
Our children are not fully developed to make these decisions, which is scary. So this is why it's so important to have healthy parents and conscious parents who are self-aware of what's going on around.
What's your interpretation of self-awareness?
Self-awareness for me is about going inside. It's about being internal. Thinking first, thinking before you cast a judgment, thinking before you speak. It's much about being present inside of yourself first.
I often think about, there's also the element of taking accountability, and also thinking about how and having empathy for others, so we can have some kind of idea about how we impact others and how we kind of serve other people, how we fit in, how we can be better in our community.
Yeah.
And self-awareness is it's almost having a helicopter view of yourself and being open to any blind spots. And we were talking about this earlier.
Yes.
I like it when someone close to me, usually has to be close to me because I'm a bit stubborn. But if I've got someone who's close to me and they can say, you did this wrong, you did that badly, here's some tough critique, I love it. And but I think in part it's because I'm sort of fairly comfortable in my own skin. But that self-awareness doesn't come overnight, does it? And you must know that from your own work and the work you do with your clients. Self-awareness is, once you learn a little bit, there's a bigger gap. There's more to learn.
Yeah.
It cascades.
Well, that kind of shows, Elliot, it shows that you have actually healed quite a lot. I mean, we're all humans, so we all have a healing journey. I mean, I'm sure there are masters and gurus, whatever, who has a healing journey, so we're all on a journey. But it shows that you have done a lot of work. To become self-aware requires the work. Someone who's formed in trauma, someone who has grew up, who's quite defensive, it's not going to take that very well.
And I think that's one of the key attributes of someone without self-awareness, is the defensive elements that you see spark in conversations.
Yeah.
It's a little giveaway, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's that, why is this happening to me? Are you attacking me? Or the constant need to defend when you're trying to have a conversation with. That's a sign, really, that there needs to be some therapy, not maybe therapy, but perhaps healing. What I don't like to tell people is like, you need therapy. I always like to tell people, perhaps you're going to go on a journey, a self-journey, a self-awareness journey, a self-healing journey. What would you say to anyone that is on the cusp of wanting to progress, wanting to find a therapist, or wanting to evolve? If you were speaking to someone that's been in a bad place and they're going, where do I go from here? What do you recommend me doing? What would kind of be your advice, you think? I definitely think it's important to find someone that you really resonate with, that you're aligned with.
Potentially a therapist or a modality, or
with a modality, with a therapist. You should do research, and I feel like we have so much at our hands now that we can do the research with. For example, like even I'm a therapist, so I will look for the modalities that I feel resonates with me and my clients. So, for example, at the moment, I'm doing this EMDR therapy, the training in this.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask you about this.
Yeah, But I would only do it if I know that it will be as useful towards my clients for me, because most of my work is based on going deep, diving deep. Tell me about your childhood. Tell me about your relationship with your mother and father. What did you witness? How did you feel? You know, so most of my work is basically going back and digging into the inner child work, and being almost like the detective, then finding out what has happened or where they form the interpretations. But then I have adults who has perhaps been abused or have gone through some form of traumas, that I know that EMDR therapy will help them through the process.
So tell us what EMDR is. That did I get it right?
Yes, eye movement.
Right. So it's rapid eye movement, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
eye movement desensitization.
Right.
So basically, when we go through a trauma, say for example, we stood outside and a man walks past and he starts hitting his wife. What a silly example, but anyway.
No, it's a good example. I've got the image in my head now.
Yeah, so you see the image, but what your eyes are seeing. So your eyes are seeing the image, but it's sending the feeling to the brain. It's feeding the brain with the emotions. So it's giving you feelings. It's giving you memory, right?
Yeah.
So that's what happens, because the eye is connected to the brain. So by doing eye movement, we are trying to remove the feeling from the event, because history cannot be cleared. We can't cancel history, but we can change the feeling, because feelings is what gives us a story, and humans usually really rely on feelings and emotions a lot more. They hold on to feelings and emotions a lot more.
I think the story thing is something I might say in our therapy work. You hear the story when a client first comes to spend some time working together with me, and the story might go on for a couple of weeks. It might be on repeat mode for quite a few times, and then it's uncovering very quickly that they're just stuck in this loop.
Yeah.
And it's lovely when you have the opportunity for them to go, okay, I'm seeing the pattern, seeing what I'm holding on to. That actually isn't my identity. I need to hold myself accountable for this, because I'm holding on to it. I'm not letting go. And then we kind of explore what are we holding on to? My identity, who I am.
Yeah. But you see, when you go through that story with your client and you ask your client, how does this make you feel?
Mm-hmm.
And what does that make you? So if my client usually has gone through a trauma, I said, and how did that make you feel? They will tell me, I felt unlovable, or I felt like unheard. And what does it make you? It makes me nothing. So they use that one story, and that one story branched out into so many things.
That's the narrative of how they live from that point onwards.
That's the narrative.
Yeah.
And that's why I said humans hold on to that narrative. Humans hold on to that feeling. So when we work with the inner child, we say, take me back to that time. So it's a bit like regression.
Yeah.
Take me back to that event. What happened? So what happened when you had your first memory about money, right? Oh, there was debt collectors by our door.
Yeah.
And I was really scared. What did it make you feel? It made me feel like we're going to be in trouble, you know? And what did that do? If you keep digging into those, you can see how all these beliefs start to tap and stack and stack and stack on top of each other. And those beliefs becomes their narrative for their current life.
And it doesn't play out very well when you're trying to be a grown-up and an adult, where you've got bills to pay and you've got a job to do.
Exactly. And that's why we have a lot of broken adults who are still recovering from their childhood. But it doesn't necessarily make it like you're broken, because I think that it's just the space that where you're at. We have to meet people at where they're at. To some people, I would ask them, do you have a trauma? Have you gone through a trauma? And they go, no, absolutely not.
Well, and we don't know what we don't know. You know,
Exactly.
there's, I don't think I have a client that comes to me who says, I've got this exact problem, because it's never the one that we end up working on, ever. So it's, it's very clear that we might have a perception. Maybe it's that the self-awareness thing kicks in, and then we start to maybe with inner child work. Those things can come out, and you can start to connect the dots as to why you're holding on to a persona, or why you're holding on to a hurt or a feeling, because it makes us feel, strangely enough, safe, because it's the better option of safe versus going out and doing something which is terrifying in the big world.
Exactly.
I'm curious, how do you look after your mental health?
I'm quite self-aware as well.
Yeah.
I've come to the point that, I'm 38 now. So I've come to the point that in my life, when I know something's not right, I can go, hold on, I need to check this out. I'm also very careful. So I'm someone who, if I know I've upset someone, or I've crossed the line, I need to take a step back. So I need to observe myself. I like to observe myself, which could be perhaps, I'm not sure if it's a part of my character, my human design.
Oh, you are.
But I like to make sure that I'm treating people how I want to be treated.
Yeah, and I guess if you've done the inner work and you are comfortable in your own skin, and you're doing things with good intentions, you got half a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, like, when I say something to you, before I say it, I make sure that it's going to come out properly, that you'll be okay with that message inside, that I might not offend you, I might not hurt you by the words that I'm saying, that I'm not projecting as well.
Yeah.
So it's something, because I'm not being selfish.
Yeah, and that's you can hear that in conversations that you might have with clients or friends and family, everyone. But easier. If you can deliver something with kindness at the core, I don't think you can go wrong. It's like I was saying, I like it when I get a close member of the family or friend that is brutal with me.
Yeah.
I know it comes from a loving space. They only want me to exceed, but there's an undertone of it's for the right cause.
Yeah.
So I'm never offended by it.
Yeah. But it's also because you deliver your message so compassionately that people are able to receive that so well.
I think language is important as well, isn't it?
It is. When someone delivers a message, or you need someone to deliver a message, that you can take that.
Yeah, so if there's an opportunity to share something, choose your words wisely, because then you've got half a chance that it'll be taken in the manner that it was meant, I guess. Mm-hmm. So with regards to your business and what you do, what's the best way for someone that's listening to this podcast today? What's the best way to contact you, and what kind of audience do you think you can help? Usually, people will resonate with me, or they'll resonate with you. If you watch someone and there's something in the message or their delivery that's just like, oh, I need to research someone. So people usually choose people who they resonate with. That's one thing. But I'm there for people who are stuck in their life, and they are stuck because of patterns. Yeah. And they're not sure where they're at. Maybe it's at crossroads, you're not sure where you're at, and you need to have clarity. Because I believe that it's not time that heals. It's working with the right person that can help you to move on. And people can find me on my website, which is www.Leilah Mirza Coaching and Healing. It's quite long. .com. They can find me there. They can book in a discovery call with me, which is complimentary. And that discovery call is just to see if we are a fit, if they feel they resonate with me, you know, if they get a feel of understanding how I work. And in that discovery call, I'll usually do what I call like almost a scan. Yeah. And I'll show you, okay, this is where I feel we're at, and this is how we can go forward moving. And that's what I do. Thank you so much for joining me today. Do you think you might come back again? I will, definitely. You're doing a great job. You really are. Thank you, sweetheart. We'll see you soon, okay? Thank you so much, Elliot. Firstly, I want to thank Leilah for dropping in and having a chat with us. We do appreciate it. And of course, if you want to get in contact with Leilah, please look at the description below and appropriate links. Remember, personal progress is a continuous journey and every step counts. So if you found value in today's conversation, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and feel free to share it with family and friends. Until next time, take care.